Hello and welcome to this last episode or last part. I've got them parts of my series on building my own magic set. This is, I guess, part 21, and here I'm going to go through I don't know the lessons I've learned or whatever. Um, because well, that's basically why I did it, the whole thing. Obviously, like you just want to have creative hobbies, and this is just one way to have a creative hobby. Like I don't know, maybe I'll do this again sometime. Although I do have other ideas I want to do first. But anyway, um, and also if I want to do this again, I need like a new idea for a for a world, which I found out that that's probably the hardest thing because they have been doing this since well the alpha came out in '93 and uh, the Arabian Nights came out. Was it even the same year? Same year or the next year? There was a glut of new sets in like '94, and before before they realized that they need to have a good development system, and then there was a period of time that when there wasn't sets at all, and after that they've been pretty regular on that regard. Um, of course now it's much more professional than it was in the early days. But anyway, so adding to that, like if you consider how many different worlds they have now, like Dominaria in itself is like very in many ways very generic, um, a very generic like well not generic, but it has this same kind of feeling like Dungeons and Dragons worlds where they've tried to like Forgotten Realms, they try to push everything into that one world, so there's a lot of different a lot of things going on, and uh there's no like specific feel to that world, but that was like a mistake from them early on. But then you have worlds like Mirrodin and uh, Kamigawa and uh, Mercadia, which we probably never see again, and then Ravnica and Zendikar and Amonkhet, Teros, which have very specific uh, real world counterparts, well, myths and so forth, like Galdheim, and yeah. So it's hard to come up with new themes that still work, and even like if you consider Ixalan, which I've brought up many times during this series, it was like dinosaurs and pirates, like two themes that definitely are interesting to many people, but somehow that set and that block just wasn't very popular. Like they probably have they probably have research on that and they know the reasons why, but still it remains that it just wasn't. So what I'm thinking is that the problem was that yeah, the themes were there, but the gameplay wasn't there. And yes, that can definitely be a problem. But anyway, since they've done so many different things, it's hard to come up very with new themes that aren't too specific, that aren't just pandering to a very certain, the very limited audience, because they are in a situation where they need to sell a lot of cards. So because well, it's a big company, and um, yeah, they need to maintain the popularity. So yeah, that is a difficulty for them going forwards, and I guess that's largely why we're seeing so many returns to lands. So like now we're in Kamigawa, and the last two sets were in Innistrad, and uh, can we count the Forgotten Realms? I don't know. And then there was Kaldheim. So Kaldheim was new. Uh, but otherwise it feels like they're going back to the same worlds much more often than they used to. What was it before Kaldheim? There was Zendikar, but there must have been something between. Yeah, but anyway, Zendikar is also. I'm forgetting one set clearly. Strixhaven, that's it. So yeah, that's new. So I guess that it's. I think they're going for roughly half and half. Like next set will be New Capenna, which is new, and and then we're going back to Dominaria, I think twice. So I don't know if they're aiming for even half and half anymore. Like at some point when they still had blocks, they were aiming to go into like one block in a new world and then one block in an old world, and this would, well, each year there would be one block of new world and one block of old world or whatever, something like that. But anyway, now it feels like they're relying more and more on the existing worlds. But it also seems that they don't necessarily quite understand what's interesting. What was it that made those worlds interesting and good for the players the first time around? Like we could see this in the second Zendikar block, which completely messed up the world. And if you're at the same time, if you're pushing out a lot of Dungeons and Dragons sets, is Zendikar even like necessary at all anymore, except as like Nietzsche's birthplace? Because I don't even know what's going on with Nissa anymore. But anyway, so the thing is that because, well, Zendikar is the adventure world, and that's what was the problem with the second set, because they took that out and made it like basically like World War II world. I wouldn't necessarily want to call it World War II. Like, felt more like a Vietnam world, where the good guys were the Viet Cong. Although I would have to note that I have a lot of Vietnamese students, so one of the things I've talked with them is that it comes up every once in a while, and before this I didn't think about it this way, but the Vietnamese see the whole Vietnam War as their civil war. So I guess in that sense, calling the Zendikar thing Vietnam War isn't appropriate. Yeah. So yeah, to them, the Americans taking part in that war was just, outsiders coming in and messing up with their civil war, which is an interesting point of view, and we definitely should like listen to people in this sense. But anyway, I'm an unnecessary tangent. But anyway, so if you want to come up with something new, it's going to be difficult. There's endless possibilities when you want to be creative, but we're still largely well, there's a lot of things that, how should I put this? Like, we as a culture, we're interested in we move from things to things, and we're like interested in specific things. There's waves of stuff, like after Harry Potter, there was a lot of fantasy stuff specifically for children. After Twilight, there was a lot of like horror in quotation marks stuff specifically for young adults, and other young adults properties as well. So we move in these waves, and while like the internet is keeping certain things alive much more than they used to be, because we have a lot better access. Well, not necessarily not only internet, but digitalization in general. like access to DVDs revived a lot of different genres from whenever, and properties, because we had access to them. Like obviously there were VHSs before DVDs, but the market for VHSs was always a lot smaller than it was in the heyday of DVDs. Although that's like minimal now. It's DVDs are just not an important part of the culture anymore. But anyway, but there are certain themes that come up over and over again, and which people are because people are interested in them, and there's limited number of these. But at the same time, if you keep people keep looking at the certain properties over and over again. Like let's take like superhero movies. People started doing superhero movies, and like Spider-Man, well, X-Men first, but then Spider-Man was the really big thing. X-Men was like these. I'm not talking about Batman. The quadrilogy of the Batman movies started by Burton and then Schumacher. So the modern superhero movie started with, at least in my mind, with the first X-Men movie. So what that's like 99 or 2000, around that time anyway. And they weren't huge hits. They were hits, but they weren't like massive hits. The first massive hit was Spider-Man, and yeah, like that obviously started the whole trend of superhero movies, which is understandable. You see that, okay, now there is interest in this, and now we have the technical capability of doing this, which was for a very long time, that was the thing that was keeping superhero movies back. You just didn't have good enough technology to actually make those movies, and now we have that capability. So obviously they're pushing out all the time. But okay, but the genre in itself is complicated. Like so I've been reading comics since I was like, I don't know, let's say like 85, 86. So well, there's been like, now I don't read them. Don't read them much anymore, and my habits of what I read has changed a lot over time. But like superheroes as a genre of comics, and now as movies, but we'll get to that, was often like a cover for getting different kinds of stories to us, because you could sell like murder mysteries to me. Like there was this villain called Sin Eater in Spider-Man, and Sin Eater was just a human who was killing like people he saw the problematic for the justice system, meaning like people from within the justice system that felt that hadn't, if I remember this correctly, it's been like over 30 years since I've read this. Although I do like the story, I did like the story back in the day. Obviously, I don't know if the 14-year-old me liked the story. I'm not so sure that like the 44-year-old me would like the story anymore. But anyway, there's a lot of different things you can do from within the genre. Obviously, there's always going to be those sections where the superheroes goes out and beats the super villain in an epic battle or whatever. But there was also a lot of other things always going on, like behind the scenes, and we see this with how. Okay, so when DC started to try to compete with Marvel, obviously the Nolan Batman trilogy was a huge, massive success. But yeah, after that, like Zack Snyder came on board and tried to do the same thing Kevin Feige has been doing at Marvel. So Marvel movies, the whole, it's like over 20 movies now, I think, and I think I've seen them all. I'm fairly positive I've seen them all. I haven't seen the Disney Plus series, but anyway. So, but they have a template. They do a certain thing every time. Well, not every time, but you know, they have a way of making those movies, And if they move away from that, like let's say Eternals, which is the second newest movie. I don't remember anymore. Um, Still, it's a fairly new movie in the whole series. Um, it tried to do something different. It tried to have a different approach to the whole thing. And like they are hiring these extremely talented directors, like Chloe Zhao, who directed The Eternals, had just won the Academy Award for Nomadland. And Nomadland is a very low-key drama about an elderly woman who's lost her place in the world because her husband died and she couldn't afford the place they were living in anymore. So she went on the road to try to find, short-term jobs. And now she hasn't been able to, like, um, she's still dealing with the grief of losing her husband, and thus she is like unable to settle down anymore. And it's um and well, it's actually, it won the best. Did Chloe Zhao win the award for best director? I'm not sure. Probably did, but the movie won best picture, and it is a good movie. Like, I don't generally like the Oscar bait movies, but that is actually a good movie because it doesn't feel like an Oscar bait movie. It feels much more real. Like Oscar bait movies are trying to build these larger than life people, but the the Frances McDormand character is just a person. She's not like, they're not trying to they're not trying to present her like some weird hero type or anything like that. She's just a person. But anyway, so why would you take this director and then have her make this template movie again? Although they're trying to do some things differently in that movie, and it sort of falls apart. But on the other hand, DC, if you look at it, um, they tried first when they started, they tried to do the same thing as what Marvel was doing. So they tried to serialize everything. They tried to build this larger world, the DCEU, the DC Extended Universe, where we had interconnected movies with Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and did anyone else manage to make their own movie? I don't remember. Anyway, I think there's a Flash movie coming out at some point. Um, there was a Green Lantern movie, but is that part of the same series? I don't know. Anyway, um, well, at least Ryan Reynolds hasn't been in that world in any capacity after that. But anyway, but what happened was that these didn't do well. I think they were making money, but they weren't the huge hits they were expecting them to be. So they started to take risks. Uh, and now, like I, when the Zack Snyder movie started to come out, I wouldn't have believed I would never say this, but I like the new DC movie much more than the Marvel counterparts. Like, I was Shazam the first one? I don't remember exactly, but we have movies like Shazam, which was done on a fairly low budget, but it takes a very different look at the whole thing. Like, it has fun. Like, imagine that, having fun with superhero concepts, and not just like winkingly like Marvel, which is like still has this feel of like superheroes movies. You can't take superheroes movies seriously, so we're doing them like ironically. While DC, like movies like Shazam and even the Birds of Prey movie, which wasn't seen by very many people, but I did like it quite a bit. Not as much as some of the other movies here. I liked Wonder Woman as well, which is like I think for me was the best movie from the Zack Snyder era. Um, Honestly, I can't even remember much about the other movies. And then we had the what am I forgetting right now? The new Suicide Squad. I like that movie very much. That was a fun movie. And then we have the new Batman, which is like a throwaway back to 90s Batman, like early Tim Burton Batman without the colors, basically. Um, so like they're now taking risks. So it's not like so basically what you have to do to make a successful product, I think, like let's say have a chance of making a successful product. Let's say that. So um, you have to find something that people are interested in, and you have to make it familiar, but you also have to play around with it. You have to find a good balance between something you know and something new. Like I think the new Batman movie does this very well. It's in many ways it's the same Batman as the Nolan Batman, except that there's this new dimension of the character not really getting it. Like he is a spoiled brat of a billionaire parents, so he's not just getting it, and I think that's a good quality to have for a character. But it's a risky take on it, because the movie, while it has action scenes, they're not like epic action scenes. So sure, like people are shooting at Batman who has his body armor on, so he's pretty much invulnerable. And there is some situation where like he's in sort of risky situations that are kind of bad for him. But in general, the movie is not about that at all. It's a detective story, and I think it's great. Um, I don't know who allowed like to put the biggest character, maybe even the most valuable character uh, in the world. Like I don't have any proof of this, but if I have to like sit down and think about it like for a while, like who exactly is the most valuable character in the world? I think it's either Batman or Spider-Man, or I might be completely wrong. Maybe it's something like Barbie, I don't know, or Mickey Mouse, probably not. Um, Especially is Mickey Mouse even trademarked anymore or copyrighted anymore? I'm not sure. But anyway, like you have to find this way of something familiar but something new. So where does this something familiar come from? If you've already used all the different themes that you can easily identify, that are easily usable for your purposes. So yeah, um, because if you keep doing the same thing, at some point you're going to end up like Marvel. You're going to do something decent. You're going to be making decent movies, but they're not something that people can feel passionate about. Like, I mean, Shang-Chi was a decent movie. I sort of like the Eternals, but it's not like I don't get the same feeling from them than I did from like Iron Man back in 2008 or whatever it was. Obviously, I was younger back then also. But anyway, um, that's a whole different thing. Yes, I'm old. So yeah, you need to keep doing something new, and but you also need to be building that something new based on other things that already existed. So it's a difficult balance. Um, like okay, so my idea was the word I'm using here. It's a super sargassy. So like I don't have to care about the marketability of this world, but that's in itself is a problem. How do you market that? It's just a world of like it has post-apocalyptic feel of like things just ending up there. So there's like the structures are gone, and yeah, so it would be very hard to market that to anyone. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. I guess I talked way too long about that. Anyway, so I did find it helpful to have like a clear, even though it would probably be, if I had like a team of people doing this, it would probably be kind of difficult to communicate what I'm doing. And like in my teaching, I teach IT, but the major theme I bring up over and over again with the students is that many of the things we're doing is specifically for the purposes of communication within the team. Like you can have there are other benefits to it, but that's why you're often why you're doing it. Like you want to communicate with the other members of the team what's going on so that everyone understands it, because people think they're good communicators, but in general they're not. So that's why I want to have the touch points, like, okay, what kind of music, movies, uh, and whatever, and just like I have the feel, look, team, mechanical teams here. Anyway, and then I wanted to have the factions so that I would have some sort of idea what to go with. And here they are. And I did find the factions when I was doing the commons, some part of the uncommons, and the multicolored cards. These felt very helpful to have these. But I also kept forgetting that these existed, which probably shows in some of the rares and some of the mythics. But at the same time, rares and mythics are specifically that they're rares and mythics, so they're not part of necessarily big part of the feel of the world. The commons and uncommons are going to provide the feel of the world, so it's not necessarily even that important at that point anymore. Okay, so also when actually making the cards, I found it very useful to have the skeleton, which was basically just I took the creature curves from for uncommons and commons from Crimson Vow and just straight up followed those. And I found that very helpful, because I do feel that there is a certain amount of testing that's been done over the years, and these have been tinkered with quite a bit, and they are different from set to set, but they still probably have a very good understanding how these curves work. They still definitely have misses with these, but yeah, what can you do? But anyway, I tried to follow the skeletons, and I think I was fairly able to do it. I did change them with the non-creature cards quite a bit, actually. And one thing I've probably done quite a bit is I've taken down the mana costs of the non-creature spells in quite a many places. That might be wrong to do, but what I felt was that it gives you more tactical decisions if you have the opportunity to double cast more often. That's a key thing often in limited. If you can get that one turn where you can do two things that make your position better, that's usually the key moment in the game that's going to turn the game into your advantage. Yeah, so that's part of why I took down I think I've taken down, I haven't checked, taken down the mana cost of the non-creature cards at both common and uncommon. I also found it helpful that I only have that one non-evergreen mechanic that I use here. Like some rares do some stuff that's unusual, like there's a couple of cards that put ability counters on things, which isn't an evergreen ability, but I think it probably should be. I think it's a little bit problematic from logistics point of view, because when they were a part of Ikoria, um, you would have them available like as punch out cards, those tokens. I don't know. Maybe you should try to do them like use the punch out cards next time as well. But if you want to, if they wanted to like utilize those better, they should have like you should have the other sides of those counters be like small, uh, very small advertisement for arena or the next set or whatever. Yeah, but otherwise, the only mechanic I had was surveil, and I felt that you could do a lot with it. Like I have things that are looking for like trigger on you surveilling, and I have things that do something if you surveil something specific to the graveyard, and I have some things looking at the number of cards in your graveyard and stuff like that. And obviously there's like reanimation spell, couple of reanimation spells that for which is helpful that you have things in your graveyard specifically. Yeah. But yeah, I found it helpful to only have that one mechanic. I think it's been done. It's been done in sets previously as well. Like Strixhaven has the Magecraft. Does it have any other mechanics? I don't think so. But and obviously different colors are going to push it differently. Like I don't have, and they're going to. I tried to make each color have a little bit of different feel to the surveilling. I'm not sure I managed to do that, but hopefully there is that. If you look at them, if you're playing, hopefully it feels surveilling feels a little bit different, even though the mechanic is exactly the same. I hope it feels a little bit different with its color. I don't know. Hopefully. Then even though I only had the one name mechanic, there were some other themes like tribal stuff and the 1/1s and like smaller themes like shades. They're the most identifiable here. Oh yeah, flying, but just a little bit. Number of lands is important to some things. Oh yeah, a little bit of an some like elemental themes and spell themes. Yeah. Um, and the shade theme. Um, uh, I don't know. I just try to, if you have these themes, again, it makes certain things more it makes easier to come up with cards. If you have an idea that you have this specific theme and you need card for that. Like I had the Sage theme, for example. Where is it? Here, Umbridge. Legendary hack summon and taps search for a Shade. Okay, so if this is going to be usable in limited, I need to have Sage in the set at common, and I do have one at common. Oh yeah, another thing, I could mix things from other worlds here, because again, the nature of this world is that things that end up here. So I just, I listed where these people are from. So you can bring different themes to feels to this world by having people from different worlds. And also I gave a lot of things names like Flint, Chip Choppers, or Windflower, Mangle, Umbridge, Spearhead, and stuff like that, because Great Tusk, because people didn't speak the language they come in, so they would just get these nicknames and they would stick. So this was my thinking. And also I found it very useful when I was making the rares and mythics to have cycles. So I would have like the what I'm calling the impossible gods for each color. Like here, the god beside Horizon, and also I would have the 3 rare cycles of a legendary creature, 1 mana planeswalker, and some like faction specific enchantment. Some of these are stronger than others, like the faction based enchantments are not very strong as a cycle, but but it was still useful for me from the point of view of design. What else? Yeah, when I was nearing the end of this, I did begin to see like holes in the set, like things that that probably would have been needed in the set, but I just didn't have them. Like there's no white. I don't think there's any white artifact or enchantment removal. No, which is like every time. Usually there in any set there is one common spell or creature that destroys artifacts and enchantments. I do have one in green. It's a creature that does it, but yeah, I don't think I have any in white. I do have a sweeper that destroys all artifacts and enchantments at rare, but obviously that's not something that most people are going to have access to. And it would be nice because I do have some very powerful enchantments in the set, so it would be nice to have like an answer to those. So there probably should be one. And also like Graveyard Hate is kind of limited, but I do have it, but that's an artifact. I was making the artifact last, so that was in that sense kind of easy. What else would I want to say? Oh yeah, I have a lot of reprints in the set, and part of me, like from a testing point of view, if I would have an opportunity to test this, I would have worked quite differently. I would have started with having a bunch of cards from some set, and then I would just, started replacing those cards with from this new set. To just, slowly try it out, what to do or what they would feel like in this in that environment. And obviously at that point you don't want to do much about them because you don't know much about them, but you still like do this well together kind of stuff. And then I would guess that testing you would require a lot of testing, but the thing here is that, sorry, I stopped. I heard rumbling from my ceiling, so I guess there's snow falling down. Hopefully it's just not some person who was up there and fell down or anything. But anyway, and yeah, I live in a small apartment building, so it's not like there's some intruder on my ceiling, even if there's on my roof, even if there's one. Anyway, yeah. So what you would want to test out things like outflank. Does it work in this set? I think it does because there's a lot of the reason I wanted it in the set is because there's a lot of token making. So outflank becomes more powerful when you have access to a lot of creatures. But otherwise, like removal, does it play out well? Does like the red removal? Is it good enough? Does it match up well with the other cards? Like if everything has toughness of 3 and you only have a burn spell that does 2 damage, it's not going to be very good. So do you want it to be good? If so, it needs to do 3 damage, or at least have the ability to do 3 damage, like what was the card in Cardheim? I can't remember the name, which does 3 damage to a creature if you have 3 snow permanents. Or is it 3 snow lands? I don't remember, but anyway. Yeah, all in all, I know the testing process hasn't happened, but the key thing here is that I did have fun doing this. And that's why I would encourage you to do something similar as well, if you're interested in this kind of stuff. Just, try it out. You don't even have to like come up with a very original theme or anything. I don't know if my theme is even that original. You can just like take some specific, I don't know, word you like. Like if you're into Dungeons and Dragons, like are you more about the Kryn person than Forgotten Realms person? If so, just make the Kryn set. The Dragonlance set, I mean. I guess the word is green. How do you pronounce that anyway? Or is maybe just one continent on that word or whatever. But still, yeah, I did find this fun. Like obviously, it was also a lot of work. Like there's now like 10 hours of these, roughly 10 hours of these videos, especially after this one because this is becoming much longer than I was expecting. And like even if you don't want to like build a whole set, if you're playing with your friends like on Commander, just ask them, do they mind if you make your own Commander, and just tell them that you're not like if they're and I mean it is understandable, like your first reaction if someone asks whether they can bring their own Commander, so their immediate reaction is going to be that obviously and this is natural from them, they're going to be hesitant to do it because they're afraid that you're just going to push some theme. But if you can talk them into doing it once, like just don't make a commander that's just way too powerful. Don't make like or bothersome. Like don't make scarab cards or anything. Like just make some fun commander for yourself and just try it out. So that's one way of doing this. And if your friends are fine with it, like, and if you may do it right, if you do like a fun commander that's not oppressive in any way, then your friends are probably going to be fine with it. Like if you do something like the Umbrets, search for a Sage, like how powerful are the Sage in this? Like there's, I guess, Skyclave Sage is quite powerful, but otherwise not quite, not very. Or something like this. Another target non-soldier creature becomes a soldier, put a +1/+1 counter on it. How powerful is that in a commander? Not very. Like like you can spend a lot of time building your board, and then someone just plays a Wrath of God, and that's it. So, but of course, depends on your environment and you're playing in. But if you just make a fun commander for yourself, I don't think anyone's going to mind. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, just try it out. I don't know. If you have a friendly play group you can play with, then they should be like encouraging of this. And maybe, I don't know, if you want to be friendly about it, make them. I mean, I've done this with some friends of mine, and I have like together with a friend of mine, we just did design a bunch of cards that like were evocative of what we thought people might be interested in playing. And it's fun. Like having a personalized commander is a fun idea. Do I have that? I mean, I do remember, like, I do have an idea what my cards look like. I've had several, actually made for myself, and I do think I pushed them a little bit too much, but they were definitely like specifically cards for me, because I do like kind of specific things. Although I think I like quite a few things in playing quite a few different things in Commander, but anyway, I don't just have opportunities because of the pandemic and because of my. I now live in a city where I don't, or town, where I don't know any other Commander players, so. So it's somewhat difficult for me to play the format these days, but and I don't know, it was a fun idea anyhow to do that back in the day when we did that, when I was still living in Tampere, quite a few years ago now actually. But anyway, I did find this fun. I think, what's my favorite idea? I think it's the Legendary Demon. Oh yeah, I just named this today. It's now got Ugot. It's a 6/6 flying trample, and whenever you surveil a card with mana value other than 0, destroy all non-demon permanents of that mana value. You lose 1 life for each permanent destroyed this way. This I find like an interesting design, like powerful mythic that isn't oppressive. It can feel oppressive, but at the same time, it's very unpredictable. So it's not, in that sense, obviously the ceiling is very high if you always manage to surveil cards in your graveyard just correctly. And you can make you can design a deck around this, which can be interesting to play because you need to have a lot of surveilling, which you don't have access to outside of this set much at all, especially since it's black-red. So there's like one red card that surveils, I think, and not that many black cards, especially like mono black cards. So it's not the easiest deck to build without a set like this, but like as a design, I do like this. Yeah, I don't know. Try this out, and I think you might want to start a little bit smaller scale than I did. And yeah, obviously you can go much further than I did. Like you can start printing out these cards and just testing them out with other people. But rather than doing that, you should definitely, if you want to try this, you just start smaller and just try to do something like Commander related, and just start with that rather than make a 10-hour series. And obviously I did use a lot more time to actually design the cards, and I didn't use much more time for the videos because I haven't edited them at all. It's just me, this weird what do you call it in English? Well, flow of ideas of me talking about this. And yeah, I'm thinking about doing this again, but I'm probably going to do some other project first, and maybe get back to this sometime in the future. I would definitely like to. I did like doing this, even if my opportunities, like Magic is a great game, or rather, like Magic hasn't felt great for me in a while, but the potential is great, and you can have fun with the game in so many ways. Because I guess in a sense it's not a game, it's a framework where you can build games on. It's a set of rules, and then you can find a set of cards to play, to use those rules with. Like basically standard and pioneer and modern and historic and legacy and vintage, they're nominally the same game, but they are actually different games built on the same framework. The same goes with various drafts. Like every draft format is its own different game. It's just that we call them one game because of, I guess, historical reasons. And there's a lot of ways to engage with this. Like I have 7 pieces of magic art on my walls. No originals, all like digital art, but still, I did buy them directly from the artist. So you know, so the artists are getting at least a cut of the money. Hopefully, a pretty good cut of the money. And yeah, that's one way of engaging with the game. And I have a lot of friends who like to do trading with the game. Like people still, you know, play this as a collectible card game or trading card game. And there's some people who are into the lore, even though they messed it up completely with the War of Sparks thing around that time. And there are people who are still interested in the rules, like people who are very into being very much into being judges and thinking about weird rules interaction and finding those weird corners in the rules that that situations that are covered in the rules. There's so much you can do with the game, and like I'm interested in the theory of the game. Like how do you figure out how many lands do you need to have in your deck? How do you figure out what the curves would look like? All of this stuff. I'm very much interested in that. So again, there's just so many ways to interact with the game, and this is just one more way to do it. I guess you could actually play the game as well, but I don't think I don't know how much I can actually I still do it because I do still want to be good at it, but I also think that Arena is not doing, like, I don't have much opportunity these days to play the actual tabletop version, and I think that Arena, the way it's set up, is actually making me worse at the game, because anytime there's like a difficult situation where you have to actually make a decision about, like, a difficult decision on how you approach a certain situation, the opponent just immediately throw their hands up and, okay, I concede, I'm not going to, or wait it out or whatever. So it's not like the Arena is not making me better at the game at all. But yeah, I guess you can still play the game, but also, like, if you want to make the game environment, you find that it sucks like I do, you can try to, you know, build your own. I don't know what the law says exactly, but the mechanics of the game are basically not quite open source, but you can't patent the actual mechanics of the game. That's a ruling from the US. I think even the Supreme Court, I'm not sure, or some level of courts anyhow. So yeah, feel free to play around with it. There's nothing wrong with it, even legally. Especially like an ethical point of view, there's definitely nothing wrong with it. Just, you know, interact with the game the way you want to interact with the game. So yeah, I don't know. If you have ideas on what kind of sets I might want to do in the future, feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to I don't know, comment, like, I don't know if subscribing is going to do much for you, because I don't know what I'm going to do with the channel in the future, but we'll see. Because I'm thinking actually moving into very different, doing things with a very different game in the future. But anyway, yeah, thanks for listening to me rambling. As you probably noticed, I don't plan these videos out very much. I just have like an idea of what I want to talk about, and then I'm very good at, you know, talking for a very long time, as you probably noticed if you've listened to all of this. Anyway, and I will share the link to the Google Docs file or Google Drive file, whatever, in the description. So if you want to look at the set, and I definitely don't mind if you want to copy it for your own purposes, and well, have fun with it. I don't actually care. I do care. If you want to have fun with it, please do. And if you've done something with, if you have good ideas on what to do with it, just let me know. Like, I'm very interested in, like, this is part of why doing creative stuff is fun. At least for me, it's like if I can inspire one person out there to do something fun with this idea, then like my first purpose is to have fun with this myself. But if I can inspire at least one person, then that's very nice bonus. So I don't know, please do. And yeah. Do I have anything else I want to say? I don't know. But since I did do it without much planning, so I bet that I will have a bunch of ideas I forgot to talk about right now. But at the same time, uh, well, we'll see if there's enough of ideas I want to talk about. I'll make an addendum, but I probably won't. But hey, again, thanks for listening. I can't promise I'll see you next time because I don't know what I'm going to do next. But hey, you never know. So bye for now.